What's up, True Fitness family, and welcome to another episode of the True Fitness Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Adrian Conway. Today, I wanted to hop on and go through a bit of a review from last week. So, of course, most of you know the CrossFit Games Open is underway. It is, and it started fast and it started hard. And I say that in regards to there were really no limitations in sight for 25.1. For those of you that may not know what CrossFit Games 25.1 workout was, and the premise of it, because I know that I have some followers that aren't as involved in the CrossFit space, which we love to welcome you. And of course, you want to follow along this too, because it all relates to fitness at large. Nonetheless, it's a community based workout where it's the beginning stages for athletes that want to compete at the CrossFit Games in August in New York and be officially looked at as one of the fittest on earth. But it's also just a community throwdown. People get an opportunity to assess and address the way their training is going, the progress that they've made through the years, and also just how fit they are relative to people in their area, in their age group, or within the world at large, and even there in their local communities. You can basically customize the leaderboard in any way, shape, or form. Of course, that makes it very fun to gamify it in that way. All that considered, 25.1 was a 15-minute AMRAP, which means you went continuously for 15 minutes. Everyone started and stopped at the same time. And it was a triplet. There were three different movements that took place. One was a lateral burpee over the dumbbell, and the other was a hang, clean, and jerk with a single dumbbell. And then we lunged 15 feet out and then lunged 15 feet back. That would make a round. The rep scheme played out so that we always increased the number of burpees and hang, clean, and jerks that were completed, and the lunge remained the same. So, in essence, everyone that took this thing for a ride and experienced it, you started to realize, and even after watching 25.1 go down, starting at threes, going to sixes, going to nines, going to 12s, like there was no doubt that you were going to get through a lot of repetitions. The biggest dictator was the burpee pacing. Now, if you go back and reference my video before, as I'm watching 25.1 and then giving feedback immediately, trying to get as much information to as many people as possible, I made a snafu and said that, some of the athletes were should have gotten a no rep with an initial power clean from the floor. Now I'm going to rant here for a moment. The initial power clean from the floor into the jerk is okay by me. I understand what we're trying to do. I understand that we're trying to lower expectations for humans by doing this. At large, this should be a concern to you. Not for CrossFit HQ, because of course they feel as though they've set hard standards and direct standards throughout the course of the Open's existence, or semifinals or quarterfinals. But then inevitably what happens is, because we're playing a sport and we like to toe the line, many movements get blurred, particularly at the threshold level where it's not athletes who are perennial CrossFit Games athletes or perennial even semifinal athletes. It's athletes on the cusp. It's athletes that want to just get a couple reps better than the homie, or they want to get a couple reps better than last year so they can actually get a chance to be on the competition floor. But my rant here is about a lack of attention to detail and a lack of accountability. CrossFit had to change the standard of the first rep because they literally thought so little of you to be able to extend your hip, hinge again, and go into the first rep of a hang, clean, and jerk. So I did make a mistake because I didn't read, and I put that in notes. So if people go back and watch my 25.1 analysis, or like tips and primers and tricks or whatever, you'll understand that I did not read in full. So on me, my bad. But I was watching them pick up. I knew the movement. The movement's called a hang, clean, and jerk, and they weren't doing that on the first rep. So every time you set down the dumbbell in this workout, you didn't actually have to do a hang, clean, and jerk. You did a power clean into a jerk, and then you had to do hangs from there. Did it work out? Yes. Did it make judging easier? Probably. And I have no qualms with CrossFit prescribing it this way. I really don't. But it really just hurts my heart to understand that that's where we're at. Is that we have to change, like the movement in the workout's called a hang, clean, and jerk. And we couldn't even force a hang, clean, and jerk to happen off the floor because of the undiscipline and the inability for people to hold accountability or even understand the simple terminology of following a rule. So that's my rant. I'll stop it right there. And many of you may not agree with me, and that's okay. That's totally okay. But that's my point, is like, I'm like, man, I didn't feel great about it when I realized that wasn't part of the standard. And it's just because, man, I want to be able to hold a standard, call a movement what it is, and then hold the community to the standard of the movement that in fact it is the movement. I'll be done. we were going to get through a lot of reps. And wow, did the fittest on earth not disappoint in this? I mean, we had people breaking the scorecard. So, one, a couple things. My considerations are, who's demoing these workouts, because the premise is that now this is not a joke, right? We're trying to find the top 1% in the world. And who's demoing these workouts to the point where the scorecard was broken, because that also highlights that they didn't expect people to get this deep. So who's demoing the workouts, who's actually, right? Like, these are things that I think about and I consider, because I coach high performers. And I also want to make sure that the test is valid for those high performers in such a way that the intended stimulus is understood by everybody who has a place in giving us the final product. And so with that considered, man, Colton Mertens killed it on the men's side. Um, he went and did 361 reps. Now, I would say that from a prediction perspective, a lot of people assumed that this would be the case. Colton Mertens, in a sport where we often find ourselves playing the opening stages in a box, which means a lot of up and down, a lot of cyclical work. Him being a shorter framed athlete, he's going to be able to make a large load travel a shorter distance quickly than other athletes have to make the same load travel a longer distance quickly. And so the advantage will go to him in many different ways. This one was a big predictor. He's phenomenal at burpees, phenomenal dumbbell cycling. Like, this was going to be a no brainer. But then to see Dallin Pepper, to see, I mean, even Colin Bouchard, who I don't really know a lot about. I'm going to look into him more. Now, none of this is final, so we'll see how all their scores continue to play out, of course, and people make submissions and scores get tweaked and edited throughout the course of the next 3 weeks. And penalties are handed out. But I was very impressed with Dallin at 348, very impressed with Jeff Adler, 341. These athletes are moving. I had an athlete, Mike Evans, churn out a 319, which I thought was amazing. He's had some setbacks throughout the course of this season, and we've had to make many changes in regards to the overall approach and intensity and training. But the grit and fortitude that was demanded of athletes that got even beyond 290 reps in this workout was astonishing. And so for people to be able to hold that clip of intensity and manage it was very impressive. On the women's side, I mean, we had, let's see, Marjam Von Rohr with a 359. And then I don't even know the next girl, uh, Alazanye is how I would assume that you pronounce her first name, doing a 345. I mean, it just seems absurd. Now we get to some folks that I'm a little bit more familiar with: Caroline Dardini, and then Fee Sagafi, of course, Manon Anganes. She redid the workout because I saw Hiller got after her pretty good with some of the no reps, perhaps, and that prompted her, but she only did better. So good on him, good on her. Caroline Prevost, of course, a consistent name in our space. Kristen Holta, all those athletes got above 340. Like, again, astonishing. Now, while we've had some really great performances, I wanted to go back and revisit some of my points of focus. I talked about the importance of cycling the burpee, and I also made an Instagram post the next day, Friday morning, to remind people, like, this is a burpee workout. And I think what some people took that as is that, coach, burpees are going to be the hardest part of this workout. And that's not necessarily true for everyone. What you have to understand is, because even the focus of this workout was burpees, the reason I stated that and continue to state it today, although I did it and the dumbbell got really hard for me, no matter what I state and what limited me, the burpee is where I spent most of the time of the workout. Mathematically, there's no argument that you can make where, unless you had to put the dumbbell down all the time and you were really going slow with those clean and jerks, it took you longer to do 24 burpees than it did 24 hand clean and jerks. With all those things considered, that's why it made it a burpee workout. Now, could the dumbbell have been a limiter? Absolutely. I mean, for me, I'm coming off of a shoulder injury. I haven't done burpees. I haven't done like overhead work in about 5 weeks. My triceps were completely done. I was breathing hard, and it became a metabolic test as well for me. However, there was no doubt that it was the pushing up off the ground of the burpee and it affecting literally the jerk of my hand clean and jerk. And I never saw it coming. My triceps typically are great with local muscle stamina. And I would say my shoulders, or even my engine, start to limit me before my triceps in a lot of things, unless it's just strict handstand push-ups. And that caught me off guard. But I don't want to shy away from still saying that was a burpee workout. And I believe it was the cyclical nature of the burpees that got most humans. And then, of course, the dumbbell was not easy. And even as we look forward to week 2, those of you that will watch the announcement, I'll be a part of the announcement, which I'm very excited about. Um, which is why I had to get on here today and make my, week 1 summary, and then of course week 2 prediction, because I got to make sure I'm above board and beyond reproach with any information that's shared with me. And I know nothing about nothing as of yet, as far as like me showing up and who's competing. And nonetheless, next week, as we talk and work through the workout and you're watching people do it, and I get on here on my podcast or on the video platform, whatever you're watching, and I address where your focus needs to be on the workout, it's not because everything else is going to be easier, right? It's not because everything's going to be even easy. It's going to be, where can you make the most bang for your buck to optimize your score? That's what I mean when I particularly say this is an X workout. X is where you need to focus mostly to maximize your score. Doesn't mean Y and Z are going to be hard, easier, and different, but it means it's where you need to focus. So I wanted to clear that up just for some context for everybody. Um, another year where we see the lateral dumbbell burpee. I think it's very low hanging fruit. It's very accessible. I think a lot of people made errors by putting their hands beside the dumbbell instead of putting their hands well out in front of the dumbbell. So it shortened the distance that your feet had to travel in order for you to start your lateral hop. So these are all things and small nuances that I want people to consider when it comes to how to optimize your score with this movement. I think that it will be a mainstay. I think it will come back. I think we may even see a lateral burpees over the bar with a barbell. And I say that because, again, when you think about running a class in the space, bar facing, boy, that makes it really difficult. Is it harder? Yeah, for sure. But also, so from a stimulus perspective, do we want it? Maybe. But when it comes to running a class of 12 or more people, and you now can minimize the floor space by making burpees lateral burpees instead of bar facing burpees, it's a big game changer. And yet it still allows us to standardize the movement in some way, shape, or form. So it's not just burpees in place or burpees to a target. So I would say it's something that we can need to continue to practice and refine and think about how to make as efficient as possible with meeting the standards, but keeping our effort low. Of course, there's going to be some athletes, it seems, that are going to get dinged for not jumping over the dumbbell, right? They're trying to do a trot as much as possible, which the crossover trot is a move that I worked with some of my clients on, where of course you step that outside foot of the dumbbell up, then your inside foot meets second, and then you cross over with your outside foot to hop over the dumbbell. It's like a trot action. It's crossover trot is what I call it. And we watched Rich Froning do it at a high level. Most of the competitors did it that have high scores. Now, the downside is that if you're delayed in picking up your trail leg, you're getting caught with 2 feet on the ground at the same time. You're just crossover stepping over the dumbbell. And now that's a different movement, because the expectation was that both feet had to be off the ground at once. Now, is there an advantage to that? Absolutely. Because you now don't have to jump at all. You're stepping. It keeps your heart rate lower. It saves you energy. There's so much less jarring of your lungs and your heart with the up and down. I mean, it is a completely different movement. So people will argue and be like, oh, that's not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And so practicing that and thinking about that in the future, I think could be a big deal. Heck, it could be a movement that we see even come up in something like the Community Cup that exists this year later in the summer, or even the online semifinals. So be mindful of that. That's my advice to you guys from a training perspective. Okay. Now I wanted to spend some time thinking about what's to come, right? So if this is going to be an even test, we know that this was kind of like a straight up engine test. There weren't any high skills. The load wasn't exceedingly high, but it measured raw work capacity, and it did it in a small window, which means that most of the reps that you were going to be rewarded for took place in only traveling, 7 feet. Okay. 8 feet, maybe for some people, longer limbed, long arms like me, bam, all the way overhead. Nonetheless, I think that it's important to now, with predictions in 25.2, think about the movements that we hit. Now, for me, this is a traditional CrossFit workout, 15 minutes. It was a triplet, right? This is where we see maximum intensity. None of the movements really were redundant upon one another or interfered with one another. We could say that we had a vertical press and a horizontal press, so that was a bit pressing redundant. So does that mean that in week 2 we see no real pressing? It would make sense to me. But this is the overhead games, right? I categorize the CrossFit games as the overhead games because we're trying to make a large load travel long distance quickly. And unfortunately, that typically demands us to make a load travel from the ground all the way to overhead in some way, shape, or form. It could be an overhead squat, it could be a thruster, right? But the further that weight has to travel, the more power we put out. And that's the name of the game with the methodology. This could, of course, lead me to another rant. Whereas, like, if you want to be a competitive athlete and you're not in pursuit of your level 1 or level 2, or like trying to really delve into the depths of what the CrossFit methodology is, and you just want to do it and expect to be a high level performer without really understanding the details of where it came from and why it exists and how it exists, the reason it exists, I think you're just joking around with your goals. I think that you're a fraction of an athlete in a methodology that offers you the root and foundation of where it came from, where it plans to go, what it's trying to achieve, and you don't take full advantage of that. So that's another rant for me. Back to the workout. It's a triplet, 15 minutes, a little bit of pressing redundancy. We hinged with the hang clean, and then we lunged. So could the lunge be categorized as a squatting pattern? It could be, just like a step up would be, right? Or a pistol would be. It's not a squat, but it's lapped into that. When you think about movement function, I think about the lunge as a squatting movement. So we lunged, we squatted technically, right? We hinged. We did some unilateral dumbbell work, but it was a light load for the majority of the community, meaning that it was cyclical in nature. They could all hang on through, not all, but a lot of people could hang on through 9s, 12s, and 15s, and even 18s unbroken. And I'm talking day-to-day CrossFit members. With all that said, I think we can expect a different flavor. Now, is it time to bust out the erg? Could be. Could be that we get a bit of some rowing. Dave said on his weekend review this week that he it's going to start fast, is what he said. Now, that could mean a lot of things, of course, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see something a little bit with a different flavor. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something with more of a moderate load, a moderate cyclical load, building even in load. So those are two options that I would expect. Something heavier than what the stimulus demanded this week, or something building to where there's going to be some really big stoppage and limitations with what people can do. Now, looking back on main site, we had some power snatches Monday, and some of you are going to be like, Adrian, why are you looking at main site? Well, they put the workout on main site. And so, with that considered, there are traces and hints of things that could take place, or what fits nicely within a 3-day period, right? So here's what I'm going to tell you. We power snatched yesterday. It was like an EMOM. I'm recording this on Tuesday, March 4th. EMOM, where we're 3 touch and go power snatch, 2 touch and go power snatch, 1 power snatch. Every 5 minutes we were going through, right? So fun and great. But to me, that's like a primer workout for something coming later in the week, where athletes will now be able to address their personal strength and be able to put it into application. Today, the prescription was complete as many rounds and reps as possible in 8 minutes of 8 dumbbell goblet squats and 8 handstand push-ups. So 50-pound dumbbell for men, for women, 50-pound, 70-pound dumbbell for men. Now, again, those 2 days back to back lead me to believe that Tuesday isn't going to be a lot of what we see on game day, but Monday could be, because cyclically in nature, you can revisit movement patterns and even utilize it as a term to, or means to peak people. Now, does that mean good programming doesn't make a squat more than once in a 3-day cycle or 4-day cycle? No, that's not what it means. But thinking about what we know, a little bit of pressing redundancy, clean and jerk and burpee. I don't expect handstand push-ups this week. 8 dumbbell goblet squats. Do I expect squats this week? I think it could happen. I really do. I think we could see some form of squat. But will we do a form of a clean and jerk in any way anymore now that we've done hang, clean, and jerks? Now, from a strength conditioning perspective, that movement's completely different. Meaning that the single arm dumbbell hang clean into a jerk is completely different than a barbell clean and jerk. Do they have similar movement patterns? Yeah, for sure. But one's unilaterally loaded. The force and the demand that it puts on your trunk and your legs and your shoulders completely different than with a barbell. So we could still see that as a heavy, in my opinion. Do I think that HQ would do that? I don't, because I think there'd be a lot of complaining from the ignorance within our community about variance and where it belongs and how it belongs there. So all that said, I believe that we might see some form of snatch. And I believe that it will, my prediction for this week is going to be that we're rowing. Perhaps, not necessarily, but I do believe that we'll be snatching. And I think that we could see some type of snatching and hanging. It could be a toe to bar snatch, where there are demands on there are demands on the let's do this. My prediction, without official and clearly I haven't thought this through, so I apologize if you're listening to it and it's getting a little slow. Um, Double under toe to bar snatch, double under toe to bar snatch, snatch increasing in weight. Where we get a stimulus of barriers to entry. People that are good at double unders can go. Maybe it's toe to bar double under snatch, where you get to hop up and do toes to bar. You can work through singles and small reps for the general pop gen community, and then the double under, something that maybe people hit PRs in the open, right, to get through. For the high level athletes, it's capacity, midline, hanging, grip, stamina. Then we get to the double under, and then the weight is like, hey, we got 15 snatches at whatever. Then we go back for a second round, double under toe to bar, similar rep scheme, maybe the exact same. And then we come back, snatches up in weight. Now, could that mean the reps go down? Absolutely, but the weight's going up. Next round, same thing. Boom, boom, double under toe to bar. Toe to bar, double under, snatch. And essentially, it's going to be an elimination style. Now, I have no idea what the workout is. That's my prediction based on the flavor, and I believe week 3 will be our repeat. I think, to me, this is one of the favorite themes of, if they've gotten feedback about the open, and they've asked people that the kind of circles that I roll with at all, people love the historical and the stimulus of, like, there was once a toe to bar double under clean workout that we did, squat clean. There was once a chest to bar, was it double under? It might have been chest to bar double under squat snatch workout that we did historically. Man, people really love the vibe of that, because it was like, hey, cool, I'm tired, I'm breathing, my heart rate's high, but I'm going to challenge myself and I'm going to see what I can hit today. We can certainly count out burpees for the rest of the open in 2 weeks. If we got to do more burpees, that's poor programming. So we're not going to expect that. Could it be box jumps? Could they go? Because they could, right? In my opinion, they come at us with a triplet of toe to bar box jump overs and snatch. And maybe that's more accessible for the masses, because, if you start with box jump overs, hit box jump overs, everybody's doing that. Step them down, of course. Then you go to toe to bar. Some people can't be doing those. Some people aren't going to be able to match the intensity or the speed. They probably need to do those. And then you could hit us with the snatch. And it could even be chipper style, right? Meaning that it's elimination. It's 60 box jump overs, 50 toes to bar, 40 snatch at 135.95, right? I don't know what it will be, but those are some guesses for me. And so you understand the sequence and the flavor that I think maybe we'll see in week 2. I have no idea. I'm excited to call it. I'm going to be there with the team. And just so you guys know, my job, I really get to find the workout out when everybody else finds the workout out. And I'll do my best to call it and have some fun. We've got some amazing athletes. Sydney Wells and Emily Rolfe will be present. It'll be in Arizona. So I'm excited. There's still stuff that I don't know, like even who is doing the announcement. So whoever's doing the announcement is still a surprise deal. Hopefully Mr. Castro's there. I know Adrian will be there. Bosman will be there. Boz will be there. So I'm really excited just to get around those guys and chat it up and hang out. It's always a good time when I do. And I'm excited for week 2, but hopefully you guys are excited for week 2 as well. I will return home very quickly from this the same day. So I will get to work as soon as I can and as effectively as possible in getting my thoughts. And I'll probably be able to do it before I even leave the scene there in Arizona. So it might be an airport recording. So show me some grace. But the idea will be to get my strategies and my personal thoughts from being on site and watching it go down to everyone that wants to give it a go on Friday and get after it. But I want you guys to remember this, and this is a big topic when it comes to the open, is that a lot of people basically go through these self-analysis in a wrong way of if their performance was good enough. So a lot of week 1 people were like, hey, do I redo it? Do you think that's good enough for 1%? Coach, do you think that's going to be good enough for 2%? The answer is that none of us have any idea, because none of us know the rest of this puzzle that we're still unfolding. So we're one third, hopefully only one quarter. I would love for us to see 4 scores in the open through 3 weeks, but hopefully we're only 25 to 33% of the way there, and we don't know what other tests are looming. So for you to ask your coach, yes, that's and then respond, yes, that's good enough. Boy, that sounds ignorant to me. And you could be the fittest of the fit. But if something comes out that you're not good at, you've got to be a perennial games athlete to be comfortable with just submitting one effort and just be like, oh, cool, I'm good. Because you just never know what's looming. Or you have to have such confidence in your ability to be well-rounded compared to the world that you just know it doesn't matter what it is. It could be heavy, it could be light, it could be strict, it could be high skill, it could be anything, coach, and I'm good. Well, then yeah, I could have an answer for you. Yeah, I think you're solid. Right? Like that's a solid performance. But for the vast majority of clients that I personally see, I work with athletes that are in the intermediate division, all the way to RX, all the way to elite. So most of them that ask me, coach, is this going to be good enough for 1% or 2%? I'm like, I have no idea because I don't know what we're going to get next week. And so I can't answer that question for you. I think that what we need to do every single week in the elimination process is to make sure that every time we submit a score, it was the very best possible outcome for us right now with what we've got. And so most of my clients redid 25.1 because of that. And not all of them did, and that's okay. Some of them gave it a go and they didn't improve because of the style of the test. And I love that for it. I think that's great. I think that's a challenge. Like there was a lot of psychological and emotional turmoil that took place during 25.1, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Our sport should be hard. Our sport should be challenging, and our sport should demand things of athletes that if you want to be called one of the fittest on earth, that it makes you question if you want it and how bad you want it. So I'm here for it. I had a few rants in there, so apologies to everybody that got to sit through all that. Hopefully, you guys can understand where I'm coming from with a few of those at least. And I look forward to calling 25.2 and also getting in touch with you guys on stuff to consider and hopefully ways to optimize it for your own self. But are we busting out the barbells for 25.2? Clearly, your boy thinks that we are. So I will see you guys on the other side. Have fun, keep rising, and there's no better time than now to check out some of the programming that we offer at ttrufitness.com, truefitness.com. Scan that little QR code if you guys are watching this video in the upper right-hand corner and get 7 days free of all access. Peace.